Connecticut Valley Views covered many substantive subjects during 2011 with relevant and knowledgeable guests. None so critical as the social issue of risk to the young and innocent. Please join me in the highlights from my interviews with Jean Milstein, Connecticut's child advocate, and Ty Ritter and Mark Wilson of the Reach Foundation, as we explore the darkest side, evil in our midst, child trafficking. Don't miss it. Hello, I'm Susan Regan. Today our guest is Jean Milstein. She's the Connecticut Advocate for Children. We're delighted to have you here, Jean.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show, Susan.
Great, great. This subject, I think, is critically important to the children of Connecticut. How do you interface? Because obviously the major interface is with DCF.
DCF in Connecticut is a consolidated children's agency. It's prevention, child protection, child welfare, juvenile justice, and children's mental health. So we spent the bulk of our time really overseeing that department. And yes, there have been tremendous problems at that department. I've done a number of investigations of facilities that have provided harmful care to children. Every single day, every call or contact with my office is confidential. We hear from a variety of citizens, bus drivers, judges, anybody, everybody, parents, grandparents,
anyone
kids,
with concern can call in.
Will say, you know, my child,
it's an anonymous phone call.
But yes, my child was unfairly taken away, or my child was placed in a facility out of state, and I can't get to visit that child. So it's a myriad of concerns, and we base our priorities on the calls that we see and the work that we do when we're out in the field.
What do you think is the most challenging part of your job?
That's a really good question. I think the most challenging part of my job is getting systemic reforms in place. You know, knowing that the work we do, this child is not an isolated incident. We can see that whether it's, you know, related to the lack of accessible, affordable mental health care in the state of Connecticut. We have 367 children who are placed out of state now. We have not done a good job of caring for children with special health care needs, kids with complex medical conditions, children with developmental and intellectual delays. So the most challenging part is getting the system to not just respond to that individual child, which, believe me, is extremely important.
To have templates in place as to what to do.
The systemic reform. Yes, we can bring a child back from out of state sometimes, and that's fantastic, but what about all the other children? So it's getting real systemic reform that's sustained. Sure. That I would say is the most challenging part.
Jean, is this problem grown, or has it become, have people become more aware of the issues? In other words, are there more children that are at issue here, or is it because people are being more vocal?
Well, you know, that's another, all your questions are good. But you know, it's a complex issue. The department has made great strides over the last 20 years in providing much better care and services and support for children and families. Children, I think, their needs are more complicated now. So we have to keep on top of that.
Is this because of drugs? Is this because of the people taking care of them? Is this because the society is more complicated?
I think it's a lot of different factors. I think there's a lot of different factors that go into that. I mean, we're seeing children with more complex behaviors.
Yes,
we're certainly seeing a lot more children with autism. Some of it, I believe, is awareness and recognition of the problem.
And perhaps births from people who've been taking drugs.
That's possible too. And so we need to, and we also have children, thankfully, who are surviving now, who might not have survived 10 or 20 years ago because of advances in medicine and advances in medical technology. But we're behind. That's one of my problems with the Department of Children and Families has been the lack of planning.
Well, that brings me to a question. It's a sad question, but in your 11 years in serving in your job, what has been the most critical situation you've seen?
Well, I chair the Child Fatality Review Panel, which is a multidisciplinary team that chief state's medical examiner, state police commissioner, chief state's attorney, pediatricians, early childhood folks, et cetera, domestic violence professionals. We meet once a month to review all unexplained and unexpected fatalities of children under the age of 18. And so we typically review about 15 to 20 fatalities each month. Now, they're not all kids who have been, you know, known to the system. They could be a child who was expected to pass away because of the, you know, some kind of disability.
Because they're aware of
sometimes
the
it's a SIDS case. but we do review homicides and suicides. So, you know, some of the circumstances of those children, particularly the kids who were known to the system, who were supposed to be better cared for by the system because they were removed from their homes because of violence and failure of parents who were either unable or unwilling to care for those children. So to see the state, which to me one of the most awesome powers that the state has is the ability to remove a child and then terminate parental rights. So the state has a higher obligation to provide care for that children. And so to see the state fail those children is just so unconscionable.
Does it ever get into the area of where you find that somebody is using these children for prostitution or child pornography?
It's a very interesting question. I sat on a trafficking task force. I still sit on it. And a couple of years ago, we did find that there were a couple children, even in the last year, a few children who were trafficked for sexual purposes. And I think, you know, there's trafficking, but there's also exploitation.
Do these people go to jail? I mean, do we hunt them down and get them and they're in jail?
Thankfully, we have a great law enforcement system in Connecticut, not only local police, but state police, and then the feds, too. They have fantastic law enforcement. But trafficking and sexual exploitation are a little bit different. And we do see a number of children who are exploited. Sometimes it's someone in the family who needs drug money and will let people
take advantage
of the child. And those are horrible, just horrible, horrible situations.
And what happens, obviously, how this child's life is currently going, which is the day-to-day effects, the long-term effects are so important to make sure that there are roadblocks put in here so that later down the road they don't become a person who creates these kinds of issues for someone else because of what they experienced.
Exactly. That's one of my issues with the Department of Children and Families. Sometimes what they'll do is say you have a 3-year-old. Here's an example. I'll give you a real example. 2 girls, 3 and 4 years old. They were horribly sexually abused by a series of mothers' boyfriends.
2 and 4.
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
So what would happen with the department went in finally, and the perpetrator was arrested and convicted and thrown in prison. And they closed the case of these girls because the mom was safe now. And we said, wait a minute. First of all, you're the mental health agency for children. These children will likely need lifelong counseling, therapy. And do you think if you don't get that mother help with domestic violence and substance abuse issues, the next boyfriend's going to be different? Exactly. You will open that case and provide services. Too often we see, okay, the problem's solved now. So prevention and early intervention is key. As soon as we know about that child, they need to be provided with, you know, trauma-specific services. Because if we don't, we know the pathways. They start to act out in school, and then at some point when they become a teenager,
we start to draw attention to themselves, are they not?
Yeah, and we then hold them accountable for their behavior.
Do children ever come to you directly?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. We get calls from children all the time.
Probably also because they have siblings, maybe an older child will know that something's happening to their brother or sister, as it has happened to them, perhaps.
Sometimes, and sometimes just their own care.
And so they report it.
Right, and they feel like they're being mistreated in a facility or in a foster home.
I think that a little bit about foster care. Let's talk about that for a moment. Foster care, I'm going to ask a kind of a critical question here. In foster care, people are paid to take care of these children while you're looking, say, for a new home. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So there's a certain amount of money according to what the child needs. Children's needs food, or what's included in that?
I believe it's food, clothing, basic necessities, and certainly medical care is provided, child care, medical coverage. Foster care, that's one of the areas where the department they're supposed to have about 800 new foster homes. They actually lost 42.
Is this because of the economy?
No, because what we find is that they have a very difficult time not only recruiting, but retaining foster parents. A lot of foster parents believe that they're treated like this, almost like they're part of a problem, not part of the solution. They're not embraced. They're not considered to be partners. That's all going to change under this new commissioner. So people drop out because they don't feel supported. A lot of families feel they get a child, they don't get all the information that they need about the child, and then when they call back, their phone calls aren't even returned.
Oh, not
so
good.
It's not, and so these folks are not good ambassadors because their own experience has not been positive. So again, I'm really confident that the new commissioner, and she's already said, I mean, foster parents will be treated as partners in the care of children. They're the linchpin of the whole system.
Well, of course, because they're kind of the nest where these children are going to grow
Right,
up,
and we
or
have
at
kids,
least go for a while until they move to another more permanent
right,
home.
or they might adopt. Or we have kids stuck in emergency rooms because we don't have enough foster care. Kids stuck in residential facilities because we don't have enough foster care. There's a logjam.
Sure. Who are the hardest children to place?
Adolescents.
Adolescents.
Are the most difficult.
And boys or
sometimes
girls,
little,
or
both, and
both?
little babies.
And very small babies. You think
yes.
people don't want that responsibility,
Right.
sort of the ongoing 24-hour-a-day type
So
of
we have
thing. And
kids
adolescents, is that because they're already grown, and what's the issue there?
Sometimes their behavior is a little bit more challenging. A lot of these kids have not been treated well by the system, so the department has not done a very good job at reaching out to relatives. And again, it's a priority for the new commissioner.
I would
because
think that's
relative
critical,
care
sure.
is critical. I mean, a child knows family. You know, it's so much better
Just
to
to
have a
know
child
that
with
there's some linkage
somebody.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Someone the child knows rather than total strangers. There's been a real problem with getting relatives to become foster parents, but I think that'll change.
Because a lot of people, a lot of grandparents are often very
Absolutely.
interested, and if they know that, as you said, if they know that they have support, they can call and say, I'm having a trouble with the child that I've taken in, or with my granddaughter or grandson. They can call and get that support. So,
Exactly.
So that is critical. Well, this is a subject I really think, do you think we might be able to get the commissioner on
Absolutely.
at some point?
Yes, I do.
All right, I'd like you to speak to her, because I have to tell you, people, most of us have children, and I certainly I will be an advocate here on our show to say that this is a very important thing to put emphasis on.
Thank
Because
you.
these people will be the citizens of Connecticut, or they will be citizens somewhere, and we want them to be the best citizens they can be.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. And we do want to have that commissioner on. I think that would be an interesting program, a follow-up program. Now, I do want to give the website, if you let me give the
Please,
website.
thank you.
www.ctgov/OCA. And you can go in there for more information, call your office, whatever you need. First guest is Mark Wilson. He is the creator of the Reach Foundation, and Ty Ritter, originator of the Project Child Save organization. Welcome, gentlemen. Well, we have some very serious stuff to talk about. What would you say, each one of you, I'm asking this, was at some point there was a catalyst in your lives, there was something that said, this is what I want to do, this is my main objective?
I think both of us were kind of walking along minding our own business.
Yeah.
It just sort of happened.
I mean, some
people ask me, was your child taken? I went, no.
Exactly.
No, I got involved one time with an incident, got very lucky, and it's word of mouth, and it just went on. And because of my prior work with the military and the government, I had the contacts, and it just evolved.
So
turned
it was
into what it is today.
really a situation then where you were drawn in just by the circumstances of the moment. It wasn't something that kind of hit you like an epiphany. It was more a gradual draw.
And then came across a child pornography case, and looked into it more. And I myself would rather be accused of murder than what these people do to children. I thought it was the worst thing in the world, and that's, I've got tunnel vision when it comes to that.
Now, as far as your support system goes, your manpower, what type of people do you have working for you? How have you been able to generate that assistance?
Well, no one takes a salary at Project Child Save, and the people, the quality of people, my team members, most of them are former Green Berets or Marine Corps Recon, Navy SEALs. And I get asked all the time, can I be a part of it? And it's just grown that way.
So these are people, I'm going to say men and women, who are retired from the military and are looking to help you.
Not necessarily retired, but done.
Done with their service.
Right.
Yeah, they're not old enough to retire. I don't want my team looking like, they're all
No.
my age.
Well, let's call them seasoned and
Right.
experienced.
Yes.
What
yeah.
difference? I mean, you're only as old
They
as
follow me
what you
anywhere,
can
and they
do.
make me look really good. Reach
Yeah.
Foundation. through Mark and Wendy, have sponsored, totally sponsored, to rescue now 11 children.
What's involved in, when we're talking about rescuing, let's kind of get to the heart of this, Ty. When we're talking about rescuing children, are we talking about U.S. children that have been taken from this country and you're going to get them someplace else? Is that what we're primarily talking about here?
It's everywhere. And if I have the money to rescue a child, and I have an American child or the other child, I'll get the American child first, because I think you need to have your own home in order before you go helping others.
I agree.
But when we go after a child, the principal child, whatever she is, there's always more there, and we won't leave any behind. So we end up with children from all over the world. However, it's happening here in America more than you know. The Justice Department, who are notoriously conservative with their numbers, just released that 2,000 children are missing in America a day. So while we've been talking,
These children are going out the door. Now, is this because the parents are not watching, the parents are perhaps selling them, or
well,
what's the
it's a
major reason for
combination
their...
it's a combination of many things, and not all of them are ending up in other countries. So, of course, there's runaways, throwaways, and that. But I'm busy enough to say that a lot of them are leaving the country.
When we're talking about these children missing, it doesn't seem as though the media wants to talk about this subject.
Well, it's kind of like Hollywood, too. They don't mind making a movie about an 18 or 22-year-old, like the movie Taken,
Right.
but they don't want to deal with the real problem, which is the little ones.
Ty has rescued a child as young as 3 years, 2 months old, that's been having sex with men. 3 years and 2 months old. And it's...
Now, and how do you find out that this child is missing? I mean, if the parents have not been selling it and the child has just been simply taken from their home or stolen from a baby carriage or whatever it is, how do you determine, do the parents come to you? And do they not go to local authorities? Do they not go to the federal administration? Do they not go to the FBI? How do they end up?
I've actually had parents come to me first, and I tell them they have to go to the authorities, of course. But, you know, the FBI is bound by geography, you know, to have the jurisdiction in many areas, to have the manpower. You know, it's a business like any other. Quite often, if a child's out of the country, it's a missing person. That's much easier than, you know, a kidnapping. They don't want it on their books. I have the highest respect in the world for the officer on the street or the agent, but the bureaucracy behind them is another thing.
You're sort of a PI without borders, like the Doctors Without Borders, right? I mean, you can virtually anything?
I rarely find the children. It's generally private investigators, and I don't go to the parents. They have to come to me, and it's generally after they've spent all their money on posters and private investigators and psychics, and have been ripped off, and that's what the charity does.
So they hear about you, and
they have to prove to us that they've got, without putting them on the streets, that they've put up as much money as they can, and then we make up the difference.
And as Ty said, full respect for the FBI and the local police. They're also bound by our borders. As Ty said, we don't have the jurisdiction to go to Panama or some other country to extract a child. And our government to do it, we have to ask the permission to go in. And though we don't accuse any country of being corrupt, or any certain individuals are always corrupt, but there is corruption in this world. There's corruption here in the United States, and it's rampant in a lot of third world countries and other countries. And for our government to go in and recover a child, there's treaties involved.
True.
You know, and by the time they get the permission to go in,
they're bound by the bureaucracy of the international relationships.
and at that point, that child's gone.
Well, let's talk about how bad this is. When we're talking about 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds, whatever. So there's prostitution, there's child pornography.
The older girls end up either in whorehouses or they're taken to gentlemen's clubs. Throughout South America, there are gentlemen's clubs in the islands. And for local girls, and some of the girls want to be there, but many of them do not.
Are they mistreated, or are they sort of kept like
As long as they keep
prized animals, I guess?
As long as they keep in line, they're treated halfway decent. The older ones, because these clubs, it's almost like a golf resort type thing, and these people, they will pay for a local girl. It's a 4-day minimum, and they will pay $1,500 to $3,500 for those 4 days. If they want an American, European, Scandinavian, the price goes way up, $15,000, $18,000 I've heard.
Are you bound by windows of time? Are there sometimes moments where you've only got so much time to operate in and you have to move quickly? And
That has happened.
tell us some of the kind of stumbling things that you run into when you've got this operation going on.
Well, just not very long ago, I was given 3 days. I was told by Interpol helps me on occasion, and they said that they would wait 3 days before they would alert the host country. And Interpol does that because they're sick and tired of reporting these crimes to the different countries and nothing being done about it. So some people at Interpol help me that way, and if I can do it, I will.
And the problem with that, though, is that they're often ill-prepared when they go in, or they may not realize they're ill-prepared till they get there. And they may be going in looking for one child, thinking there's 3 or 4. They go in ill-prepared, and they might find 6 or 7 or 8 children. And so ill-prepared, more kids than you think, but again, they move forward with the mission.
So once you go in there, we're talking now that your men have weapons, correct? I mean, they are to go in and see whatever they see. Now, do you break up this group, or do you just simply demand to take the children, or what kind of happens under the circumstances?
I would love to walk up to the door, knock on it, and say, could I please have little Susie?
Right. Right.
Those children are worth a lot of money to them. And these people, if they lose the children, they have to answer for it. And now even the drug cartels are involved, some really violent people. Quite often they will run away. We don't set out to hurt anyone. But once those children are in our custody, to protect the children, to see to it no more harm comes to them or to my team, we will do whatever we have to do to make sure that that doesn't happen and that we can bring the children back safely.
What about the ones where there is no family involved and simply it happened to be a child that came with the group? Where do they go? What happens to them?
I have several orphanages in different parts of the world, including here in the United States, that will take any child that I don't have a parent for. They are extremely well funded, and one of them is funded by the largest brewing company in South America. And they also hire investigators to determine whether the children were kidnapped, and it's not that hard to do. Was a police report filed in this, even in a little village or wherever, or were the children sold? And if they have to stay with the orphanage, 2 of them, my favorites, they have homes on these orphanages, on the land, and they have a mother-father team. They can have 2 of their own children. And I went into one of the houses, 9 bedrooms, and they have an Olympic-sized swimming pool, both of them. One's a ranch, one's a farm. So these kids have to get up and milk the chickens before they go to school and do all the farm work, and it's a great life for them.
Yeah, that actually gives them that gives them real life skills, that gives them a basis for a living, that's a day-to-day. That's a real touchstone to be able to be involved, to be almost a family-type atmosphere. Now, how many children have you been able to rescue in all the time that you've been doing this time?
I don't have an exact number. I know it's over 200.
And when you say that you folks need to raise money for that, are you able to share with us, do you have an objective, a goal for this year? Do you set it up on an annual basis? Do you set up based on the number of rescues you're anticipating? Is there a goal that you're looking to meet?
When Ty and I met, he said, people don't want him doing what he does, especially those people. They want to stop him because he's running their business.
Right.
And there was a little discussion that they may want to stop me if I am too loud. And I said, well, I got to think about that. And then I called him back that night and I said, how tall of a mountain can you find me? Because I also said to him, Ty, looking in his eyes, I said, I believe what you're saying, but it's so surreal. You have to prove it to me. And he says, you want to go with me? And I said, no. But then he called me a week or two later and they had a child and I said, I want to fund that. And we did, and about 3-4 weeks later I got a phone call that they had rescued, I believe, 4 children that time. But I have a goal of raising $250,000 for Ty by the end of the year. I don't know how we're going to do it, except with help from folks like yourselves and help from you folks.
Right.
Because there are children, Ty knows where there are a certain number of children right now. And I will keep writing the checks as long as he keeps finding the kids, but I will run out of money someday.
Yeah.
And my wife says it's going to be sooner than you think, and my staff tells me that as well.
But Americans are great on giving, and I think as long as we can get the word out, that's the main thing.
And they are, but
because this is not a subject that people want to talk about.
But this is a difficult subject.
We would like to give the information. Ty, I'd like to give your website, if I may. And that is, and on there people can donate through the website, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
PayPal or an address to send checks.
Okay, very good. And that's www.projectchildsave.org, correct? And also, Mark, obviously, we're going to give your website, which is www.thereachfoundation.org.
And you said it correctly, but I'll stress the Reach Foundation.
Okay, so we need the before the reach.
Right.
Okay.
And a simpler way, if they would like, because of our relationship with Travelers, and thank you Travelers for this, because we are still a private foundation, because most of the funding is from my family, you can now text REACH to 50555, and that'll make a $10 donation. And you do have an opportunity to do it 2 or 3 times in that one single phone call. And that's a simpler way for people, and we thank Travelers for that ability to do that.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I do appreciate both of you taking time out to come and visit Connecticut Valley Views. We certainly hope we're helping to get the word out.
You've been wonderful.
Well, we're delighted to have you here, and especially take the time. You've had such a busy week. And safe trip home to you, Ty, when you go back to California. And you're just in Farmington, so you'll be good.
Hope to see you some more.
Okay.
Great.
Very good. And for our viewers, you can see all of our programs on our website at www.ctvalleyviews.com, and you can email me your questions and comments to connecticutvalleyviews@cox.net. This is Susan Regan, thanking you for joining me and bringing proof to the people.
We hope that you have enjoyed the highlights from our Connecticut Valley Views show series and invite you to view the programs in their entirety on our website, www.ctvalleyviews.com.
Our thanks to Windsor Federal Savings for making this program possible. Neighbors helping neighbors since 1936.